Let me show you how sorting kit works. Search results can be better. So traditionally you do a search and you get a grid of results. You're looking for hotels, you're doing shopping. We're all familiar with this search result grid, but you can't really do much. You can maybe put them in favorites or add into your shopping cart. But if you want to do any type of decision-making work, if you want to consider many options, if you want to enough multiple people, you're going to reach for an external tool. You're going to save the links, you're going to text them around, you're going to make Google Sheets. The app itself that gave you the search results is not helping you. My idea is to treat search results like piles of items. So imagine you could zoom out from a search results and treat this as like a single carousel of items. So all of these search results, this is the bottom level, this is the set of items. And then now we zoom up one level, we see just a single carousel. Voila, a single carousel. Why would you want this? Well, because every single element on our grid is a pile, or is a space for a pile to exist. So if I've done a search and now I've got the results for my, Airbnb, then I can use this grid as basically an Excel kind of spreadsheet for making my own piles. So if I'm going to flip through these items and I say, okay, I don't like B at all, it's a no, hard no. C is like a maybe, D, I just haven't quite made a decision. E, I really like it. Just by clicking on another cell, you can move the item from the original pile to make a new pile. And so I can perform a classification very quickly, very easily. And as the developer, I did not have to code this up. I didn't have to make a new comparison UI for multiple different categories. All I had to do was use the sorting kit UI library, tell it how to render one of these grid squares, and it takes care of all of this nested pile structure for you. You also benefit from, so now every time you do a search, you can get a new pile and you can put it on the grid. And you can choose how piles are displayed. That's why we've placed them on the grid. So for example, I can say, I want to resize this pile and make it bigger. Because this is the items I'm looking through and I'm trying to do classification. And so you can say, well, I like item A, so I'm gonna put it down here. And then I like item B less, so I'm gonna put it here. You can also show piles with different sizes. So I could say, let me turn this pile, H, let me show it as a 4x4, but I'm going to show individual elements. So I'm going to show the first 4 elements in this pile. So the reason why you might want to do this is if you were hierarchically classifying things, or if you were grouping. So let me show you how grouping something works. So say I've got my 3 piles of great, maybe, and no. And say I want to then clean up my view, or I want to group these maybe and no as roughly the same thing. So if I select these, let me show you what's going to happen. So I have 2 piles. Each of these piles is pointing to a grid view, a full gallery view of all the items inside this pile. But we're at the top looking at 2 carousels. After we group them, we're going to show a single carousel. So let me group these. I'm going to show you this. This is the destination pile, this mid-level that we're creating. And I'm going to put this here. So again, this corresponds to here. And then here, what we're doing is we're going to put a new pile in the place. So this is pointing to here. And the question is, why did I leave this empty space? because if I was going to drag new items into this pile, then this means these items are being put into this pile somewhere here. Where should I put them? Should I add them to either these two piles? I can't tell. I don't have enough information here. That's why there's a default mailbox. Say, oh, I dropped this in when I wasn't able to tell. If I was embedding this pile into the parent view such that I can see where it is, now if I decide to drag this item, I know exactly where I want to put it because I can tell. It's unambiguous. So that's how nesting piles works. And you can see how flexible, and you can navigate through the levels of your tree made up of piles and zoom in and zoom out. And so you can do a rough cut and sort into, two piles, and then you can zoom in down to all of the items you put in here, and then you can start to further classify it further hierarchically on demand. So you don't have to materialize the entire classification tree. You don't even have to classify every single item. You can kind of iteratively classify the best ones. Another neat thing you can do with the pile nesting, this view propagation, is that suppose I was doing building an outfit when I'm shopping. So because in this sorting kit, each of these search results, every time you do a search, it creates a new pile onto the grid. You can do searches for multiple parts of the outfit and keep them in view at the same point in time. So I can search for tops, pants, shoes, and I could search for hats. And then I can create a pile that shows 4 items at a time. Or concretely, I can create a nested pile. So like here is a pile that is showing 4x4, and then there's another pile inside of this. And what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, I'm visually, these are my tops. I pick one that I like. I don't like this one. Don't like this one. I like these pants, or they go with this top. And then I can flip through these carousels, and I've built my own user interface. So these are the shoes, and then I can flip through all the way to the end and say, oh, I like this hat. And now I can say, okay, flip through. I can say next on this carousel, revealing a new empty spot, and I can continue to build my outfits. And so the important part, notice how I flip these over. I haven't actually deleted any elements from the carousel. I have copied them into the pile. So piles are just pointers, there's references, they're cheap to copy. And so they're pointing to the actual item. And so I can flip back through my carousel, and I can even, for example, say, oh, I'm going to flip back and show E because I liked that top. I can select E, I clicked on it, then I can say click next on the carousel, and then I can click on this cell. Boom, E has been put there too. So I'm just cloned a reference, which is like a couple bytes. And so you can see how I can use this library, this abstraction of piles, and this library keeps track of all the bookkeeping for you. And then your end users can kind of customize or build whatever app they want for their shopping purposes. The integration with the search here means that every pile you create automatically is available in the search for filtering. So you could say, oh, I'm going to filter on, I want to remove all of the items that are I've already marked as bad from further search results. So you can just say and not in, and then quote one of the pile names. Search for the pile name, and it appears in your search filters. So you can save time if you're using an application built on piles.